elastic fibers. Yeah, they're stretchy, but if something's elastic, what else do we know about it? It doesn't just stretch, it comes back to its original shape / length / consistency. It doesn't just stretch, it bounces back. That's what it has to do with being elastic. And here you can see collagen fibers, the big thick fibers, where there's a lot of air around in between tissues. That is known as areolar, loose areolar connective tissue. Areolar, lots of space. We'll see that on one of the slides. And that loose areolar connective tissue, that is the tissue that is most often beneath what? The skin, yeah, the epidermis, the dermis, the outer layer of the dermis, below epithelial tissue. This is fat, adipose tissue. Notice we have a nucleus that's way pushed off to the side because all the fat droplets in here are there to store the fat inside the adipose tissue. Probably the easiest one to notice. Reticular fibers. Notice the lacy network. That's a great one to look at. The liver and the spleen. They're thin collagen fibers. It's actually much easier to see on the slide than it is here. And it has a much better look. Actually, the look of it on page 167 in the book is better than this one. And that's showing the liver. And you'll get a good look at that lacy network. But the liver and the spleen are the two places where you see that most often. Lymph nodes, yeah, a few other places. But it's this thin, kind of almost lacy network. And that's reticular. Dense fibrous connective tissue. If it's regular, it looks what? Nice and neat. Dense irregular is what? More of a random kind of hodgepodge. If I were to throw papers up in the air and let them land, what would happen? They'd kind of land all over the place, wouldn't they? Mm-hmm. They wouldn't land nice and neat. Well, that's what dense irregular is like. Dense regular is nice and neat. The collagen fibers appear white, which is why this is known as white fibrous connective tissue. That's why this is known as white fibrous connective tissue. This nice, neat way with all those white collagen fibers in here. And that is for strength. That is for strength. So dense regular is located in things like tendons and ligaments. It's located in places like tendons and ligaments. Dense irregular is located in places like the skin, the lower portion of the dermis. We'll talk more about that in chapter 6. Now, elastic connective tissue. It stretches a little bit. See the places like the aorta and around the heart. We want strength, but we want stretch. So we want some give there. Large arteries, the heart, have elastic connective tissue surrounding them. So they can what? Expand or stretch. But we don't want to overstretch. If you were to overstretch your hamstring, what would somebody might say that you did what to your hamstring?
Pulled it?
Yeah. And what happens if you pull your hamstring? Stay off it for a week, it'll be good. Guess what? Pulled heart muscle. Just don't use it for a week, you'll be fine. Guess what? Does that work very well?
No.
Not exactly. So we need to keep it from overstretching, but we want it to be able to stretch some so that it can expand, and that's elastic connective tissue. Now, here we have chondrocytes. Chondral. Remember I said the cartilage the very first night. And chondrocytes are cartilage cells. They are in lacuna. Lacunae plural, are, I liken them to shells. Think peanut in a shell. Chondrocyte would be the peanut. The lacunae would be the shells. Same thing is true in bone. We'll look at that in a minute. Osteocytes are in lacunae. They're kind of like the shell. And so that's what the cartilage looks like. Now there's a couple specific kinds of cartilage. This is elastic cartilage. This is elastic cartilage. And you can see the elastic fibers in here. Think the ear. The ear kind of gives a little bit, doesn't it? And then it bounces back. Now, hyaline cartilage is at the ends of long bones. Hyaline cartilage is at the ends of long bones. It's those little rings on our trachea that keep us from what? Getting our trachea compressed. It keeps it expanded so we can breathe. This is also what? Here at the end of the nose. That gives some there. That is part of the hyaline cartilage. We'll talk about that next week. Here you see fibrocartilage. See the intervertebral discs. What are discs for? What are they good for?
Cushions.
Yeah, shock absorption, cushion. So the intervertebral discs as well as pads in our knee. We'll talk about that down the road. But this is what they look like. Again, chondrocytes in the lacunae with a lot of collagen in here to provide for shock absorption. They provide that cushion. They're like shock absorbers, fibrocartilage. Bone, if you look at it under the slide, they're in rings. Those rings are known as lamellae, kind of like rings in a tree, trunk of a tree. In the middle is a central canal. The osteocytes are again in the lacunae, and as we'll talk about in chapter 7, the canaliculi, they connect the lacunae together. Here's canaliculi, plural. They connect the lacunae together, so they connect the osteocytes together. And here's the osteocyte inside of the lacuna, singular. Lacunae, plural. We'll talk a lot more about that in chapter 7. Blood cells, mostly you're going to see red blood cells. If you look at blood, you can look at white blood cells, and you see all the fluid, the plasmas, the intercellular fluid, and platelets kind of look like dots because they're fragments of cells. They're pieces of cells. You guys saw that because you had it out in one group. So you happen to see that, even though I told everybody to grab that field tissue. That's okay. Go ahead.
So at that point, they need a specific machine to take out platelets.
To what?
To take out platelets. They need a specific
No,
machine.
it's about separating the blood, period.
Yeah.
It's about separating the cells from each other and from the plasma. You need to do all of that.